People who work at super fancy hotels, what kind of stuff happens that management doesn't want people to know about? Story 1. We had one of the Baldwins beat up an escort behind the building once. That was before I worked there, but people still talked about it. We also had an entire wing of the hotel infested with bed bugs. They just moved through the walls from one room to the next. We waged a war of attrition that took years and cost a lot of money, but we never stopped renting the rooms. Sometimes drug addicts have money, or maybe better said, sometimes people with a lot of money have drug addictions, so maybe once a year you'd have someone move in, and then end up staying for months, and you didn't know it was a problem until it was a problem. One day there's suddenly a lot of police cars in the parking lot, and it's something we're just not supposed to talk about and pretend never happened. We had one old guy though who was rich, divorced several times over, and he just retired in the hotel. He had a room on the ground level right around the corner from the hotel bar. I don't know what he paid for it, but it wasn't cheap, and he furnished his own room. Everyone on the staff knew his habits, knew his drink, knew when to leave him alone or when he wanted to chat. The funniest thing was, after he passed, he pre-booked his memorial at a totally different hotel. He liked his privacy, I guess. R.I.P. Hal. That bedbugs one can't be legal, right? I hear those things are the worst to get rid of. Also, R.I.P. Hal. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. My brother worked in an upscale hotel in Southern California. A morbidly obese guest sat on the toilet in his room, shattered it, got his femoral artery slashed by a chunk of broken toilet, bled to death, and flooded his room when the water line ruptured. My brother found out about it from the maintenance guy who found the body. Management made sure no other guests ever knew, including the guests in the room below the death scene who called for maintenance because water was running down their wall. Story 3. Did valet at an upscale hotel in San Francisco. The number of times I parked luxury vehicles with drugs haphazardly/precariously stowed in obvious places blew me away. Not surprisingly, those guests were also great tippers as they learned who to trust. So many escorts, too. Always laughed at dudes who'd come to the restaurant for lunch with a new lady practically every day. Like he was showing off his catalog of women as if no one knew that he paid for them all. Story 4. Human trafficking became so bad that the company gave us training on looking out for it. There is policy in place to knowingly cause you issues and pacify you. For example, routine elevator maintenance during a busy period, because the tech travels around and it is now or 3 weeks from now. The elevator did not have unforeseen issues. Professionals are the worst guests for partying and puking everywhere and peeing in halls and breaking things and banging in public areas. Lawyers, doctors, teachers, in that order. Whenever they had conventions, extra staff were on the next day for dealing with the damage. Story 5. I only work as a housekeeper at a regular 4-star hotel, but probably about 25% of people either bleed or leave crap stains on the beds. It's truly atrocious how disgusting people are, especially when they know someone else is cleaning it up, even the wealthier guests. And the best tippers are usually the cleanest people. If someone fully crapped on the bed and used towels to wipe, left nut on the shower door, drank heavily and puked on the carpet in multiple places, and clogged the toilet, that person will not tip at all. But the person who barely used the full bed and didn't use the shower at all and was super clean and polite, now that's a good tipper. Story 6. I worked cooking at an ultra-exclusive resort in Utah. $3,000 to $12,000 a night. Nothing that exciting happened in my year there. I found a bottle in the tallboy, large fridge, labeled Kristen Bell's breast milk do not use. Most celebrities were nice, except for David Beckham. He specifically requested no staff members make eye contact with him. I had put in my 2 weeks and was really drunk on a day off and made a Facebook post about how Gordon Ramsay was coming and I hoped he wasn't filming Kitchen Nightmares with us. I was fired within 24 hours. I did get to cook fish tacos for him and his family, though, and I heard he complimented the dinner kitchen crew directly, which is cool. Gordon Ramsay complimenting chefs? Yeah, that's not just cool, that's amazing. And I'll also never understand super stuck-up celebrities like David Beckham. Like, what do you mean no one makes eye contact with you? Yeah, that's rough, buddy. That's just how people work. Story 7. I used to work in accounts receivable for a couple of luxury hotels that were owned by the same LLC. We would open blocks of rooms for a generic sports season about 8 months in advance. Due to high demand, these reservations had to be a 2-day Friday-Saturday stay. Payment was made in full, $450 to $800 depending on room type. Refunds were available only if you canceled a month before the arrival date. When I first started in the position, I discovered $63,000 worth of reservations that had been canceled on time but were never refunded. I showed it to my manager, an absolutely incompetent woman who couldn't check in a guest if she needed to, and she got back to me after discussing it with one of the owners. I can't remember how exactly she put it, but I was told to just forget about it and to not mention it to anyone. I got a $500 cash Christmas bonus that year, though. Story 8. A well-known luxury hotel and resort chain keeps a database of you. They get pictures from the internet and basically stalk you to create a profile. They put what you ordered to eat, how many towels you needed, what drinks you liked, your kids' names and birthdays, address, phone number, and everyone working in the hotel has access to this database and can see your information. It's not all good stuff either. We know that you were a jerk to Jen while you were staying in London. The one I was at had to remove cameras in the lobby because two bigwig guys would bring their mistresses and no evidence was allowed to be recorded. Story 9. Good management constantly fixes up messes and guests will never know. In my experience as a manager, if maintenance shows up with the manager to check something in the AC or TV, then an employee accidentally checked in the wrong reservation. Manager gets your name, gets you a free drink at the bar, and fixes the mess up. Using the elements, rooms, AC, and heating go out all the time. If it's a hot summer and the AC doesn't work but we're overbooked, last check-in will get the room. We bank on it being cooler in the night. We know everything about you, especially if we have a reason to. I know that your brand new Corvette is rented. I know your schedule and all of your movements through the hotel. If you're good at hotels, then you have a good idea of who, what, when, and where most of the time. All hands on deck. Ever noticed a random maintenance guy on one floor and security on the next floor, and then a manager checking out a picture on the other floor? I've spread out the team on each floor to deter kids with sports teams. The parents like to get drunk and let their little darlings run free on the hotel. Low-grade adult videos. Yes, the half-drunk girl you walked in with your 5 buddies who just want to see the pool is obvious. We know and have cameras, and then everyone gets Pikachu-faced when you're asked to leave. Rappers. Yeah, I saw you rapping at 3 a.m. walking down Main Street with your buddy filming using an iPhone. You're good, but we know you aren't a guest, so just walking in the hotel isn't going to work. We know it's a nice place, but ask for permission. Same with influencers. Beer is our bartering system. I could fill pools with the amount of beer I've given away. Got a maintenance issue? Go to the bar and have a drink on me. Room not ready and you're mad? Have a beer, etc. Events pay the bills, not guests. We could sell every room every night and still not hold a candle to event revenue. $40,000 weddings, $85,000 hospital party, $65,000 Shriners event, etc. When guests say that we'll close because their room money is what helps keep the lights on, we have a chuckle behind their back. Bed bugs. Larger hotels have better insurance to compensate for bed bugs. We won't say their name, but we will hand you over to a human resource who files a claim and starts a compensation package. As for when it happens, it can cost us between $2,500 and $5,000 to clear a room of them. And we treat the rooms on each side of the infected as well. Also, all hotels get them, but if a wealthy person gets them, they will spend tons of money to fix the issue. Whereas small, cheap hotels get people who just can't afford the treatment. The hotel has a nervous system. The fire panel is wires that run through the whole hotel telling us of any water, fire, or tampering to hotel safety. How do I know you're smoking in your room? I didn't walk by. The fire panel told me. How did I know you tried to remove the detector? The fire panel. And why are you using steam to cover up smoke? The correct way would be a thick plastic closed hair cover, but no promises. But the panel knows all, and those housekeepers are also looking for evidence of windowsill smokers. Drugs. We don't care about high-end drugs. I have had elitists drop a small bag of coke and I returned it to him in the bathroom. It's not worth our time to confront them or to get police involved unless it's a full-on party that's out of control. Story 10. Not a hotel employee, but associated with a popular convention that everyone would recognize. The convention attendees would get so out of control that the hotel will only host a convention if they have a private security force. Since the private security isn't law enforcement or licensed, they do pretty much whatever it takes to keep trouble out of the public eye. Mostly, it's locking people up in rooms or escorting them out of town, but they can get rough at times. But none of the convention attendees know they're there, and the hospital staff pretends they don't see them. Even those who run afoul of them don't exactly know who it was that grabbed them. Story 11. I worked in fancy hotels for over a decade. Some corporate-owned, private-owned, and Indian-owned. Just about anything you can imagine happens. I was in a group of managers of different properties who would meet weekly for drinks, and we would share, well, you wouldn't believe this stuff, stories. We had a saying, don't ever say, I've seen it all, or what's the worst that can happen. But to be more specific, fires, death, robbery, escorts, banging in every nook and cranny, drunk people doing stupid crap. important people doing stupid crap and thinking their clout can make it go away. However, the best ones are really the most unwild and just mechanical failures. Things like fire systems going off, a boiler busting, and water raining down an elevator all the way to the lobby. Also, scissor lifts falling through the floor because the dirt washed out under the foundation concrete. Story 12. I worked in room service at a very chic hotel in Miami. One guest requested that a specific waitress, not a room service worker, always deliver him food. Not exactly sure what went on in there, but he tipped her with a big bag of hash each time, which she would promptly bring back to share with the room service staff. Calvin Klein brought his own food because he was on a special diet, and oh, he was a jerk about it too. I can confirm that the concierge will get you whatever you want. Women, drugs, Cuban cigars, guests listed at clubs. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I worked at a nice but older resort, one step above a cheap motel. A local escort stole all of the furniture from one of our rooms. It was old, crappy wicker furniture. We had a local couple who were staying with us to avoid being served for a lawsuit. We weren't allowed to say that they were staying there. The police eventually showed up for them. There were also several times when guests would come to the front desk claiming the maids had stolen something from their room. They would be irate, demanding we call the police every single time. Then they either found the item in their luggage or their car, or their travel companions had moved/packed the item. One gentleman claimed that he forgot his very expensive camera in his room. My manager pulled up the video that showed him packing it up in his car, placing the camera on top of the car, and driving off without realizing it. I have personally never put something on top of a car before leaving. Maybe I'm just not at that point in my life. Maybe I'll hit 30 or something, and then all of a sudden I'll just be putting stuff on top of the car before I leave and forgetting it. But so far, hasn't been an issue, so I don't really get it. Story 13. I used to work as a freelance bartender, and hotels were always the worst run situation I would end up in. Here are some examples from a really nice looking hotel in an old monastery. The beer lines had never been cleaned, literally never. I asked where the equipment was to do it, and no one could tell me. I eventually found it dusty in a closet in the cellar. The breakfast buffet leftovers were usually reheated and given to the staff, but sometimes became the following day's breakfast buffet. The chefs were hammered pretty much every single day. The worst I saw, though, was the wine put out on tables at a wedding. They married them up, recapped them, and put them back in the cellar. Not even the same wine getting poured into the bottles. Guests had drank straight from them and everyone had seen, and no one had an issue. In my country, it's actually illegal. It's called diverting waste. This was the final straw for me in this particular venue. I told the manager that I didn't give a crap what he did after my time there ended, but there was no frickin' way I was letting that wine be resold. He tried to tell me it was perfectly legal. I cut him off and told him it wasn't, and it didn't matter if it was. It's disgusting and immoral. And if I find a single bottle of that wine in the stores, I'm walking out. Luckily, when you're freelance bartending somewhere, you're there because they desperately need you, so threatening to leave actually works pretty well. Story 14. My mom used to work as a cleaner in a fancy hotel. She actually ended up quitting because of how disgusted she was that 99.999% of the bedding, towels, etc. never got washed. She said there's such a time pressure to get X amount of rooms done in X amount of time that many cleaners would just remake the beds and refold the towels. Surely this is the exception, not the rule, right? Every time I've been into a hotel, it was clearly cleaned recently. Maybe I just got lucky, I don't know. Story 15. Don't think these are much of a secret, but I worked valet at a very nice hotel. I had to give some very drunk people their car. I'm talking having trouble standing. Management said it's their property and we have to give them their vehicle. I saw it mentioned before, but a ton of adult videos were shot here. Guys unload a ton of camera gear and get the waterfront penthouse. A couple of done-up girls come and leave. Then everyone checks out. No one stays the night, even though the room is paid for, and I always found that strange, but I guess I get it. Celebrities always had aliases, but we knew they were coming. The staff at high-end restaurants on the property were drunks and loved Coke, but I think that's just a lot of that industry. I don't know, I thought nicer restaurants might pay better and have passionate people, but nah, they just party all day and charge a crap ton for food and drinks. Story 16. Just recently quit my job at a very old hotel that's rated 4 stars and extremely popular. For an entire summer, we weren't given sponges and had to scrub toilets, tubs, etc. with nothing but our gloves, hands, and Tilex. Some housekeepers brought their own sponges, but there was no way I was going to spend money when the hotel makes millions every year. When we finally got sponges, we would use the same one for every sink, toilet, and tub/shower. There was mold growing behind the wallpaper in some of the bathrooms, especially the poolside rooms. We prioritized speed over cleanliness every time. If pillowcases didn't look used, we were taught to not replace them. It just has to look clean. It doesn't actually have to be clean. Story 17. I used to work at a restaurant in a 5-star resort that catered to rich and famous people. We would regularly have musicians, professional athletes, actors, etc. as guests. So obviously we were supposed to have a high degree of professionalism. Anyway, people were gross. One of our servers was training a new hire on opening our restaurant. While showing the new hire how to set up to open our restaurant, I caught her telling the newbie to get the cleanest bucket you can find for the sanitary solution to wipe down tables. That ticked me off. I told the hire to not listen to her and to find one that's actually clean, and if you can't, make one clean before you use it. One of the head chefs had a hemorrhoid issue or something or other and would pick at his butt frequently. Once I was in the employee locker room at the urinal doing what one does at the urinal when I heard the toilet in the stall next to me flush. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the stall door open and a guy wearing Cook Whites walks right by the sink and out of the locker room without washing his hands. Would have reported it, but I had no idea who it was, and we had dozens of cook staff. So yeah, even at nice places, people are frickin' gross. Story 18. 30 plus years in the luxury hotel business. What kind of stuff happens? Everything. People unaliving themselves, drug deals, abortions, fights, mental health cases, theft. You name it, it will happen. In fact, that becomes part of the training of a new person to the business. If it can happen, it will happen. Now, you may think, I've been here 5 years and it hasn't happened, so they're wrong. Nope, it merely didn't happen on your watch. Think someone can't steal the couches out of the lobby? Seen it. Think somebody can't push a massive vending machine over a balcony? Seen it. Think somebody would not meticulously cut every sheet and drapery into 1 by 1 inch squares? Seen it. Think somebody will not intentionally kick in the plumbing pipes underneath the sink to cause a flood? Seen it. Think somebody would not intentionally get a chair and then hold a lighter to a fire sprinkler head? Seen that one many times. These things are rarities, but they can and do happen. My personal favorite was finding a roughly 8-inch by 8-inch hole in a hallway wall. Followed the trail of drywall dust to a nearby room where we uncovered an unconscious person on the floor with his head covered in drywall dust. As best as we can tell, somebody decided to use his head as a battering ram, and when they realized he was out, dumped him in his room and ran away. So the holding a lighter to a sprinkler head thing seems like the advanced, leveled up version of just pulling one of the fire alarms. Like, pulling the fire alarms, I kind of get, because it's like, oh, it's accessible, and you're like, oh, I wonder what happens when I pull one of these things. Is that just me? No, people think that. But doing it by getting a chair and holding a lighter up, striking the lighter and holding it up to a sprinkler head, that is a whole level of commitment to cause chaos that I can't even imagine. Also just, really dumb.